pals, I'm here today to do a bit of a sort of random hodgepodgey video because I would like to talk about the books I want to read in March, and as I was sitting down and making the pile I realised that I haven't hauled most of these because I don't tend to do book hauls anymore. So this is sort of a book haul, sort of a TBR, and also a bit of a sort of TBR challenge, because when I was putting these together I realised that when I consider all the books I want to read, it probably could be like a book a day throughout the whole of March. Now I don't think that's possible because I'm working full time, I don't have any annual leave booked in March. I do in April, so like maybe in April I'll consider doing a book a day, but I'm going to sort of tell myself I'm doing a book a day and then hope that I still manage 20, like I'd be very happy with 20. So I have various stacks here. Some of the books haven't arrived yet because I've ordered them, some are on NetGalley because I've recently got an e-reader and joined NetGalley, which is very exciting, but obviously I've done the typical thing and requested loads of books and now I am panicking, so I need to read lots of them, but they are ones I was really excited for. And then I also have lots of audiobooks I want to get to, and I've sort of downloaded the ones I'm most excited for on Scribd, and just loads of piles. So I'm not going to be able to talk about all of these in a lot of detail because there's too many of them, but some of them I have mentioned previously, particularly in my most anticipated books for the first 3 months of the year video, which I'll link up here, and any books that I've already spoken about in that video I'll just let you know and you can go and hear more about them there. The first two I have were both mentioned in that video and are already out, and the first one is Luckenbooth by Jenni Fagan. This came out in January. I'm a bit behind because I spent nearly all of February binge watching easy television and not reading, so I think I love this. It's historical fiction, it's got a bit of a gothic-y edge, it's set in a house in Edinburgh through I think over a century. Sounds like I could really enjoy it. And the next one is The Galaxy in the Ground Within by Becky Chambers. This is an advanced reader's copy, came out in February, and it is the fourth and I think final book in the Wayfarers series, which started with A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. I really enjoyed that book. I didn't love the second and third books. I thought they were good but didn't really enjoy them. I think this could be more like the first one for me, so I'm hoping to really enjoy it, and I think I'll like easily speed through this one as well. Then these next three I didn't mention in that video, I don't think. The first one being A Still Life, which is a memoir by Josie George. I saw Hannah over at Let's Talk About Books Baby talk about this book. I will link her channel in the cards above. I really enjoy her channel, I highly recommend it. This is a memoir about Josie George living with a chronic illness, which I think is undiagnosed. She's been diagnosed with lots of different conditions and tried to seek treatment for them, and the doctors have never been able to work out what exactly is happening to her body. And I read the introduction. I really love her writing style. I just fell into it and immediately warmed to her, and I think I could like just power read this one and not want to put it down. But I'm also a bit, I guess, tentative about it because in the introduction that I read, one of the things Josie George was wrongly diagnosed with is what I've been diagnosed with, and that's functional neurological disorder. Like, I think the doctors are right and that's what I have, but there's always this fear in the back of my mind that I know it's something that's quite commonly wrongly diagnosed, and then something that does exist goes unchecked. I don't think that's what's happening, but obviously there's this just a little niggle. And I have a slight concern that this could feed into that, but I really do want to read it and I think I'm going to really enjoy it. Josie George wrote this from her bed. She's very commonly unable to walk and uses a wheelchair because of her condition. I just think it's amazing that she managed to write a whole memoir living with a chronic illness like that. So yeah, very much excited about that one. And then another one I was kindly sent, and this has a beautiful cover. This is the advanced reader's copy, but it's what it will look like when it is published. This one is already out as well, came out in February. And there's Love is the Next Country by Randa, Jarrar. This is another memoir. This is told as a road trip across the US, as Randa is a Palestinian daughter shamed about her weight, her background and decision to become a teenage mother, and she rebels against her abusive family and the expectations others have of her as she does this road trip. So I think that sounds super interesting. And then lastly, I hadn't actually heard of this book, which feels like a crime because it sounds like the sort of book I would completely love. So when the publisher contacted me being like, oh, would you like a copy of this book? Most of the time when I'm contacted, like that, I say no, just because I don't feel like the book is, you know, particularly a book I would enjoy, and it's more that, you know, the person is just doing their job and trying to market the book. But with this one, I was so happy to be contacted, and that is King of Rabbits by Karla Neblett. This is a contemporary novel, a debut novel for the author, and it's set in Somerset, and I don't know if I've ever read a book set in Somerset, probably not. This follows a young boy, and it says this is for fans of My Name is Leon and the memoir Lowborn, both of which I read and really enjoyed. This is about a working class mixed race child growing up on a rural council estate in Somerset. He has 3 older sisters who all have different dads, and his mum is being led into a crack addiction by his petty thief father. So I'm not sure actually if this is set, maybe this isn't contemporary, because it says he wants to be the fastest runner like Linford Christie, so maybe he's growing up around the time when Linford Christie is like at the height of his career. I'm not sure, but I love the sound of this. Again, I think this is one that I could completely fall into and just want to speed read. So those are the 5 physical books I have that I really want to get to in March, because they all have come out in January, February or March. Then I have another stack of 5, but these are a bit more random, so bear with me. The first one is a reread for me, and this is a group read that's being hosted by Chris over at Chris Bookish Cauldron, a channel I love and adore. Chris reads lots of amazing fantasy. He's phenomenal for fantasy recommendations, but he also reads literary fiction, so I just love hearing him talk about whatever books he's talking about. That's one of my favourite channels. Please subscribe if you're not already. And he's doing something called the Skyward Inn. So this is Luck in the Shadows, which is book 1 of the Night Runner series by Lynn Flewelling. And this is the first book in a 7-book series. I've read the first 3 and have always intended to carry on and just haven't for a few years. And then she has a separate 3-book series. So Chris is hosting a 10-month-long readathon where we read the first 7 books in this series and then the next 3, and they're all set in the same sort of fantastical world. So I decided, rather than join in a few months' time when they get to the 4th book, I was going to join from the start and reread the first 3, because it has been a couple of years and I really enjoyed them. So yeah, please join in if you haven't heard of this, and maybe you enjoy fantasy but you know you haven't heard of this one. I think, as Chris said in his video, it feels like a crime that Lynn Flewelling isn't more known as a fantasy writer. But if you don't read fantasy but you want to dip your toe, I really do think Lynn Flewelling along with Robin Hobb are great choices. They write pretty literary fantasy, so they're super character focused, very detailed writing. It's not like crazy fast plot, but there is plot and there is intrigue and mystery, and you just love the characters. So very much looking forward to being involved in the group discussion for this one. And then another sort of buddy read is I will be reading Luster by Raven Leilani with my Patreon book club. I have refreshed my Patreon tiers because I just didn't really feel happy with them. So I had a big discussion with Johnny and decided to sort of change them all up. And so my tier 2, which is $5, is now a book club, and we'll be doing a live show probably the last Saturday of each month. And I decided to pick Luster because I've heard so many people talk about it, so I thought there was a good chance some people would already have read it, and I know that lots of people really want to read it, and I've heard mainly positive things but not all positive, and I want to ensure that we talk about books in the book club that people will have differing opinions on, because I think it makes for a more interesting discussion. So I think this could be a really good read, and then following on from this I will like choose 2 or 3 books each month for the Patreon book club to vote on, so you actually get the choice. But I didn't have time for that this month because I was very behind. So yeah, do feel free to go and check my Patreon out. It's always linked down below. And I'm hoping like enough people turn up to the live show that I just don't look like a complete twat. So that would be nice. So if you do have the ability to support me over there, I'd really appreciate it. So I'm very much looking forward to that. A little bit nervous, but also very excited. And then we have 2 novels which sort of fit a theme that I really want to read. One of them I recently picked up for myself, and that is The First Woman by Jennifer Nansubuga Makumbi. This is a coming-of-age tale set in Uganda during Idi Amin's reign, and we follow a young girl, and it says this has a blend of sort of folk tale and feminism. I have previously read the short story collection Manchester Happened by this author. I adored it. I really want to read her debut novel Chintu as well. I heard amazing things about that one. But I feel like this could be a 5-star read, and I actually recently put this in a 5-star reads prediction video over on my Patreon. So I want to try and not forget about those books as I tend to do when I make 5-star predictions, and to actually read them. So I've already read one in February, and I'm now going to read this one in March. And the theme is that I just read We Are All Birds of Uganda, put the cover up here, by Hafsa Sayan. It is set in contemporary London and Leicester, and then in Uganda there's sort of 2 storylines, and there's some letters that are from the contemporary character's grandfather, which are written during the reign of Idi Amin, when Asian Ugandans were forced to leave Uganda and give up their citizenship. And I really loved it. I found it super fascinating and just really enjoyed it, and I already had this one on my shelf. And then I thought, you know what, I want to sort of carry on and read more. And I also knew that Kalolo Hill by Neema Shah has just recently come out. Cover up here, beautiful cover again. And that one is told from the perspective specifically of Asian Ugandans, of a family who are forced to flee. And I think you follow a few members of the family, I think one being a newly married couple who are part of the younger generation, and then I think maybe one of their parents, and what it's like for them having to flee and leave all their worldly goods behind and start a new life. And I think they also moved to England. So I am really looking forward to reading these other 2, and then hopefully to do like a triple review and talk about, I guess, what I learned and the themes and similarities, and yeah, just have a chat with you guys about them. So those are 2 others I want to read. And then lastly, one I have on pre-order is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. This is a pretty chunky book, as was The First Woman, so these ones could slow me down. I read and really enjoyed The Miseducation of Cameron Post, which came out, I think, nearly 10 years ago now. I only read it a couple of years ago. It's a YA novel, and I think it's one of the best YA novels I've ever read. Haven't read loads, but I feel like it's, you know, leagues above a lot of the others that I've read and that are recently being published. And so I was very excited to hear that Emily M. Danforth had a new novel coming out. I'm not sure if this one is being marketed as YA or adult. I think maybe adult. But this is set at a boarding school, and there's some sort of mystery going on, and it's being marketed as like a gothic lesbian romance with lots of intrigue. Pretty much whatever she was going to release I was going to pick up. I didn't really care what it was about, but I'm into gothic boarding school vibes, so very excited about this one as well. And the next 5 are books I've been approved for on NetGalley, which came out either in February or are coming out in March. The first 2 I've already spoken to you about, so I won't go into a ton of detail about them. And the first one is Skyward Inn by Aliya Whiteley. I've previously read 2 of her sort of weird fiction novellas and really enjoyed them. And this is a full-length novel. It's a science fiction novel, and Skyward Inn is a place where people sort of meet one another to reminisce about like a war that happened, and it's a place of sort of escape from all the instability and conflict across the galaxy. But then somebody new arrives, like a mysterious stranger, and mystery ensues. So very intrigued by this one and really want to get more into science fiction, so I think this could be a really good in for that. And then we have another author whose books I previously read, and that is All the Murmuring Bones by Angela Slatter. I previously read her novella Of Sorrow and Such and really enjoyed it. That's sort of like a witchy book, and this one is also a bit witchy, but it's focused on mer people, so it's a fantasy. And we have this prosperous family who struck a deal with the mer people that their ships would always be protected at sea when they were like merchants, like moving goods around, if they gave a child of each generation to the mer people. But for the last few generations they've been unable to keep their side of the bargain, so like dark, twisty stuff starts to happen. And I actually read the first few pages of this one, really loved the tone, so I'm very excited to get to this one. And the next one was a bit of a cover request on NetGalley, and that is Sea and Flame by Tallie Rose. This I think is a YA fantasy as well. I love the sound of this. I really enjoyed Holly Black's most recent series set in the Fae realm, which starts with the Claw Prince. Lots of problems with them, but I loved binge reading them, and I happily binge read them again. And I'm always trying to find books that sort of have that dark Fae world, but are a bit better, and I'm hoping this could be that. So this is about a young girl called Seraphina, great name, who has sort of powers and abilities, and she gets involved with the dark Fae world, and sort of link is opened to the Fae realm, and plot ensues. So yeah, hoping this one is really good. And then we have Friends and Dark Shapes by Kavita Bedford. This has a beautiful cover. This is an Australian release coming out in March, I believe. The author is an Indian-Australian author, and this is about a group of 30-something-year-old friends who move into an apartment together and are trying to sort of build this new life. And it's told through vignettes, and it says this is filled with humour and grief and sort of lots of commentary on contemporary life, and it just sounds wonderful. I'm really hoping to enjoy this one. I really like books about sort of a group of people coming together. I think it's going to be particularly interesting that they're all around the same age, because I've read this sort of thing before, but not necessarily about a group of people who are all at a similar point in their life. So I'm really looking forward to this one. And then we have another beautiful cover, and that is Lurkers by Sandi Tan. So Sandi Tan is actually the director of the documentary Shirkers, which I have on my to-watch list. So I think I'm going to watch that first and then read this one, because I feel like it could have, you know, similar commentary. So this is a novel, and this is about a group of people living in LA, and it says we follow precocious Korean American sisters who find their life rocked by suicide, a creepy drama teacher who grooms his students, a sardonic gay horror novelist who finds that ageing is more terrifying than any monster, and a white tippy mum and her adopted Vietnamese daughter. So yeah, I really like the sound of this, again, group of characters, and yeah, just very much intrigued to watch a documentary by somebody and then read a book by them. I don't think I've ever done that before. And then I have the 5 audiobooks I've already downloaded on Scribd. So how Scribd works is that you pay a monthly fee and you have access to loads and loads of ebooks and audiobooks, but it's not unlimited. So if you start listening to like one audiobook a week, then all of a sudden, like say you've got 270 audiobooks saved, like I have, like 200 of them will become unavailable. So you can still listen to loads, but the more you listen to, the more limited your options become. So what I tend to do is just choose a select few that I really want to get to in the next month and download those ones. And I think that sort of ensures that I have access to them. I'm not sure, I hope it does. One I wanted to get to in February, which I didn't manage to, is Wandering in Strange Lands, a daughter of the Great Migration reclaims her roots. And this is written by Morgan Jerkins. So I listened to her book, This Will Be My Undoing. When that came out, there was an essay collection. I really enjoyed it. I had like some issues with it, but in general I thought it was a really strong collection, and I vowed that whatever she brought out in the future I would read. This sounds right up my street. I think I'm really going to enjoy this. So Morgan Jerkins has looked into her family's history, and she tells sort of the history of the Great Migration of African Americans from the southern states to the northern states, through finding out about her ancestors. And I think that's going to be fascinating. I really enjoyed the commentary she had on her sort of nuclear family in her essay collection. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch her sort of delve into her past. I'm very interested in sort of following Morgan Jerkins on that journey. I think she has a great narrative voice. So I'm very happy she is narrating this audiobook herself as well. And then I have one I heard Jen talk about in the last couple of months, and I thought it sounded brilliant, and I found it on Scribd, and that is Sitting Pretty, The View from My Ordinary Resilient Disabled Body by Rebekah Tausig, and she narrates it herself. And this is a memoir and essays, which is something I love, that is told from the disability activist Rebekah Tausig, and it said she grew up as a paralysed girl during the 90s and early 2000s and only saw her disability depicted as monstrous. And she sort of follows the history of living with her body. It says writing about the rhythms and textures of what it means to live in a body that doesn't fit. Sitting Pretty challenges us as a society to be patient and vigilant, practical and imaginative, kind and relentless as we set to work to write an entirely different story. So yeah, I'm very intrigued by this one and very interested to listen to it. And then in a similar vein, I've been very excited about the release of this one, and that is Growing Up Disabled in Australia. This is edited by Carly Findlay, who herself has a memoir that I found on Scribd that I'd really like to get to. But this is a collection of writers who are Australian and disabled, talking about their experiences. This is a series. I listened to Growing Up Aboriginal in Australia last year, and they also have Growing Up Black in Australia and Growing Up Queer in Australia. I'd love to get to all of them, but my priority is Growing Up Disabled in Australia. I'm very excited to get to this one, and just can't wait to hear all these different voices. And then we have The Removed by Brandon Hobson. I'm so happy to find this one on Scribd as well, and I think this has multiple perspectives because it has a few different narrators. This one is about a Cherokee family, and a sort of Cherokee national holiday coincides with the 15-year anniversary of their son or brother's death. I mean, he was shot by the police, and so it's all of them coming together, and they haven't really spoken about him in a lot of years because the grief is just still so raw for them. And it's about, I think, them coming together and sort of trying to speak about it, and sort of find one another again through the grief. So I have wanted to read Brandon Hobson's first book, and still haven't got to it, but I'm going to start with this one because I think it sounds wonderful and hope to really enjoy it. And then lastly we have a YA fantasy, and this is Legendborn by Tracy Dion. This is not the sort of thing I would usually read because this is a contemporary fantasy, but I understand it starts in like our world, so I don't tend to love fantasy that do you call it urban fantasy when it's predominantly set in the real world? But the reason I'm drawn to this one is because we follow a young girl who realises that she is an ancestor of Arthur from like Knights of the Round Table, and I think she's sent to like some training school, maybe where other ancestors are, and you know, she's a legend born. And basically I recently read a fantasy novel called The Lost Queen by Sidney Pike, which was about people who were linked to the Knights of the Round Table and Merlin and Arthur, and I really enjoyed that history, and so I just really would love to read more books that in whatever way are linked to that sort of mythos, I guess. So I was really excited to hear about this one. It's pretty long, it's like 18 hours in audio, but I've heard really good things about the audiobook, so very excited for that one. So you've managed to sit through me talking about 15 books, well done. And I have got another set of 5 that I haven't chosen yet. Each month I'm trying to read 5 books off my physical TBR that I had sort of prior to the start of this year. And if I manage that, I'll end the year with a 0 TBR. I'm a little bit behind, I'm going to be honest, but I am aiming in March to manage to read all 5. Luna just walked past me, you might have seen her, and so I will, you know, just pick whichever 5 I feel like. I'm thinking about maybe at the end of March doing a sort of TBR shelf tour, so you can see an update of the books I have left. By that point I should be down to 45 unread books, so let me know if you would be interested in seeing that, because I thought it might be interesting, so you guys could let me know which ones you think I should prioritise. And yeah, I'll be choosing 5 random books from that. So if I manage 20 books, I will be over the moon. So let me know if you think it's possible. I mean, there's not much else to do, to be honest. I've had some sort of recent announcements in England to do with how lockdown will be changing for us, but it's not changing really much at all for March. The only difference is that you can like sit on a bench with somebody if you go for a walk, like you don't have to keep walking the whole time. So that's not really going to change anything, and I'm antisocial enough anyway, but I'm absolutely fine with not meeting up with people, to be completely honest. So yeah, so I have lots of time for reading. Problem being, Johnny and I just binge watched season 1 of UK Drag Race, and we've never watched US Drag Race, so I think there's 13 series, so I just have to like watch them but not do what we just did and watch a whole season in 2 days, because then I won't read at all. So wish me luck. Let me know if you've read any of these or if you have them on your TBR list. Let me know if you've ever managed 20 books in a month, if you think it's possible. Feel free to give me advice as to how I can do it. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.